In this video, I'll be showing you how to create amazing portraits like these by following some few easy steps by following this exact framework. So I want to invite you all to get all of your materials. Let's get started. Alright everybody, so for this picture I used a pretty simple underpainting, and for the underpainting I used some burnt sienna. It's just a couple of lines because I didn't want to create too intricate of a design today, but as I layer on top of this, there's gonna be some more details that we eventually add on, and I didn't put all of those down in this underpainting because I don't really want to overcomplicate things. I want things to be as simple as possible, and you want it to be as simple as possible as well, because as you layer on top of it, that's when you're actually going to start adding in your highlights. That's when you're going to start adding in your true blacks. You're going to start adding in different colors. So you really don't want to add too much work for yourself, and the underpainting is just a place where you put the blueprint of how your picture will be, and so that you know that you're putting the right colors in the right places, and so that your proportions are correct. So that is what I'm doing right now. I'm starting off with my shadows, and for the shadows I like to use burnt umber. I don't like to start off with black because black is a pretty powerful color, and you don't really want black to be smearing all over the place when you're applying your lighter colors. Burnt umber makes it very simple and is not too strong like how black is, so if I ever get this mixed up in a lighter area, it'll be way easier to clean than if I were to use black. So I'm just using very small amounts at a time. With oil paints, you don't want to be using huge chunks of paint. It's not like any other paints that you've used before. Oil paint is very smooth. You don't need a large amount at all. You just need small amounts, and you just apply it, and you can stretch it very wide range. You can really cover up a whole canvas with just a small dot of oil paint. That's just the magic of it too. So the burnt umber, I didn't mix it with any other colors. I'm just using it straight out the tube. And my areas that I'm covering up right now, like I said, you don't need it to be perfect. That's what the other stages are for. That's what the layering stages will focus on. But right now the shadows are in areas such as like the right side of her face where the light is not shining, and like around her eyelids and her lips and underneath her nose. So now for the skin is a light skinned person, so I'm going to be using a little bit of my yellow ochre, and I'm grabbing some of my burnt sienna right here, and I'm going to mix them together on my palette. But you see that I'm not really using large amounts at all. You're only dabbling a small amount, and this is very essential if you're going to be mixing oil paints, because when you mix very large amounts, you're going to end up wasting a lot of paint, and it'll be very hard for you to get a color match, because if your color is too strong in one area, you're going to waste a lot of paint trying to move it to a different area. For example, if you're trying to make say you're trying to make a green, and you use too much blue and not much yellow, then you're going to be wasting a lot more yellow if the blue that you already have on your palette is too strong. So you're going to waste a whole tube of yellow just trying to get it to that right green. But you could have avoided that if you only used a small amount of that blue and use a larger amount of that yellow, and you keep on mixing it until you get the color that you like. And then once you get the color that you like, it'll be way easier for you to replicate it and keep on making more of it. So only use small tiny amounts. I used to struggle with this too because I thought that oil paints would have the same properties as other paints such as like acrylics or watercolors, because I've been familiar with those. I've used those before. I've really used every single type of paint, but oil paint is definitely the one that I really like the most, but it takes a while to get used to. If you're new to oil paints, then you should definitely take time to learn how the properties of it work, because it's not going to be like any other paint that you've used before. And if you're starting out, I also do want to invite you to join my emailing list. Over here is where I have a free 7-step guide on how to paint portraits perfectly every single time. And over there, I'm also going to be giving you some more free value on some materials that you should buy and some methods that you should follow. So if you're interested, click the link in the description. It's right there. But don't use large amounts of paint, only use small amounts. And on the palette, you can easily use them. You can reuse them, manipulate them, just like how I did over here. I only used that amount of the yellow, and then I just reused it again. I added more white to it That's how you see that the colors are going from dark to light as it goes down to up. But before I paint on my paper, I like to prep it. I'm not painting on just plain paper. I use Liquitex acrylic medium. It's gloss medium, so you can find this at your art store. It's a clear tube with like green text on it. Just look for acrylic medium, and the gloss just makes the paper shiny. I just think that adds a nice effect to the pictures whenever they're done. But if you just paint on straight paper, the paper is going to suck all of the paint out of it, so your picture's not really going to come out very shiny. It's going to look very dull. It's going to look kind of dry and crusty. But you're not trying to do that. You're trying to get a nice picture. You're not trying to get something that's gonna look like it's not professional. I just want to create something very nice looking. And you want to make sure that the surface that you're oil painting on is prepped nicely. And if you don't have access to the Liquitex acrylic medium, you could also use another alternative, is gesso. It's basically just white acrylic paint, but it has like some different properties than the one out the tube. And this is a surface that you can oil paint on, is what you use whenever you're creating canvases, and you can also add it onto paper as well before you oil paint. But right now, I'm just figuring out my ranges of where my dark to lights are. You always want to start off with your dark colors and you eventually taper down to your light colors, because this is what's going to add texture. And the forehead is a really easy place to start off. In the mid forehead, add your darkest color, and on the left side of the forehead, add a little bit of that dark as well. And then as you taper on to like the medium area, the middle area, then that's when you start using your mid tones, and then you eventually top it off with your white tones, and that's how you get a nice structure. And you add that and you get a really nice structured face. So you want to also add these light areas to like where the curves are of the nose, like the nostrils, and also on the cheeks. The cheeks have a lot of light reflection in this picture, so that is why I'm adding my lightest tones. But this is not the finished product. We're going to add some white to this later on. And to really highlight the details and the places where the nose goes deep in, I add some of my burnt sienna, because burnt sienna is a little bit of a reddish tone, and I add a little bit of my burnt umber for those really dark areas. I don't really use black yet. Black is going to come in a later stage, and you really don't want to use too much. I'm just lightly tapping the brush over where the paint is right now. I'm not going deep at all. I'm just like lightly touching it. The brush is barely supposed to be touching the paper right now. It's just leaving a small mark, and then I'm softening it up by wiping off my brush and then creating like a nice smooth transition from the darks all the way to the lights that I'm using. So now that you see I've done that, all of the places where the lights transition to the darks are pretty smooth. And I'm also doing the same over here with the eyebrow. I'm just barely brushing the paper. I'm just lightly touching it with my burnt umber. And when you do that, you see that you get a nice smooth eyebrow texture right there. You don't want the eyebrow to be too thick. And if it does come out too thick, you can always clean it up with a clean brush. Always make sure that you wipe down your brush before you start to move on to any different colors, or when you're tracing out something, or if you're just trying to create a smooth transition between different colors, because you're going to end up getting an unwanted color in an unwanted place when you do that. So that's a rule of thumb I always make. So I always keep a clean paper towel next to me that I can wipe my oil paint off on. But right now I'm doing the same thing too. I moved on to some of my smaller brushes, and I'm touching up on the eye right here. And the eye is a very simple area. You're just supposed to get a nice outline of where the pupils are and the eyelashes will be. And then after you do that, you have pretty much a finished eye. The only thing missing from this eye right now is just the whites of the eye. But first of all, I want to finish out all of my other areas before I go in with my small brush and do some detailing. So right now, the biggest white area on the face right now is the lips. And for the lips, I have to address them right now. So I'm gonna grab some of my existing colors on my palette. I'm just gonna add a little bit of red, and I'm gonna tweak it just small by small. This is what you want to be doing whenever you're creating new colors. You just want to use the existing colors on your palette, use very small amounts, because you don't want to be taking up huge hunks of paint just to get a color match, because that's not necessary. And I'm just adding small amounts of white as well to eventually get the pink color right here that I'm going to use for the lips. And I'll just apply that just very lightly onto the white areas right here. I'm not really using too much pressure at all on my brush for this part of the painting. I'm just lightly touching it. But I think that everybody should engage in some sort of creative activity, whether it be painting or whether it be instrument or just anything at all, because it's really therapeutic and it can really work wonders in your life. I've not only received so much opportunities from this, but it's also helping me out so much, just mentally, physically, helping me out with literally confidence. This makes me more confident. It's something that also I can look forward to doing, and something that also makes me feel good. It's become a part of me, because when I've practiced so much on just something, and whenever I'm able to say that I have this ability or I have this skill, it just feels so good. And because I know that I've transformed my art from even just a few years ago just by really indulging myself into it. And this is something that also gives me the ability to hop into my flow state. And that is something that comes too when you become really good at something, because you start to put all of your energy and all your focus into it. You stop being distracted by the things that are around you, and you just allow that power inside of you and allow all of that energy inside of you to be directed towards just one specific task. So that is what I would recommend to everybody. And an easier way to hop into your flow state too is to start building a routine around the things that you really enjoy doing. So for me, the routine that I do is I always paint in the same place. I usually like to paint around the same time of the day. I use the same brushes. I listen to the same music. I change up the music sometimes, but all of these are factors that add into just the overall feeling that I get whenever I paint, and the overall mood that I get, because everything adds up. Everything is there for a reason. The reason why I follow these same routines, follow these same things, is because I know that that is how my brain works, and I know that that is how I'll be able to get the most out of my painting sessions. So this can be applied in so much other things too. Like, you see professional athletes do it, you see musicians do it, you see really anybody in high positions. They always have that routine that they follow, and when you start to implement this too, then you start to have the same sort of brain patterns, the same sort of brain waves, and that allows us to put more energy towards the actual task that we're doing, rather than putting energy into thinking, oh, is my lighting right, or thinking like, oh, is my chair too high, or am I doing this too late in the day? Because those are all factors that add up, and you don't want your brain to be focused or distracted on the wrong things. You want your brain to be only with the thing that you're trying to accomplish, with the task. So keep the same routine every single time. Keep the same sort of book that you paint in, the same sort of paintbrushes that you use. You can change these up like small amounts, but don't change it too drastically every single time that you paint. Try to keep it consistent, because that is how you'll actually start to fall into that flow state easier, and you'll start to become more familiar with your surroundings. So right now I'm just filling out those black areas like I talked about before. Now it's the stage that I really start to touch up those details, and I'm not using pressure on my brush at all. Again, I'm not using any sort of large strokes. These are just all very small details, not only because my area is small, because I only want the smallest impression on these things. And as I'm finishing up this photo right now, I'm figuring out if there's any areas that I missed out on for some more shadows, or some areas that can really be deepened in some sort of way. So that's like some areas underneath the nose, and like over top of her eyes, and around the nostril and her upper lip as well. So I'm just using some of my burnt umber to darken up these areas. I'm not using my black so much. I'm just dragging these small areas of the black for the crease. I'm not using any new black from the tube. I'm just brushing my brush on the place where I already applied it, just to grab just a small amount, and I'm putting it where her lip is so that the crease can really go deep and you can really tell that there's a crease over there. So you want to do that. You don't want to grab some new black out of the tube because it's going to be too much and it's going to be too overpowering. So over here you see that I actually did not clean off my brush, and that is exactly what will happen to you when you don't clean it off, and you'll have to layer on top of it with some of your lighter colors. So always clean off your brush. Make a habit of wiping it on your paper as well before you start to transition your colors. But now that I'm done with that, it's time to move on to my whites, and I'm adding the whites to the areas where the light is reflecting the most. And you want to start off with the forehead. The forehead's a very easy area for me to start off with my highlights, and then I eventually move all the way down to the chin. The forehead's a very easy area to paint, and it really gets me mentally prepared to move on to some more difficult areas, such as like the cheeks or like the nose or something. It's just a very easy area for me to start off in, and it creates a smooth transition down to the nose as well. So you can figure out if you enjoy painting the forehead first, or if you like to paint different areas. This is just what I've been doing, and it's what I've been used to. So now the picture is pretty much finished, and this is my favorite part, where I'm able to just see all of the work that's been put into the picture, and I'm able to really appreciate the work. So the only thing missing now is just the hair, and for the hair is just a very simple area. I'm gonna add some of my burnt umber and some of my black. The hair, it's very simple. You really don't need too much. The only thing that you really need to put a lot of energy and attention into is the facial structure, the highlights, the shadows. But once you get that down, then you will be pretty much good. And this comes from lots of practice. Just keep on practicing, practice on practice, just trial and error. And the only way how you're going to get to this is if you actually put some energy into your work and put some energy into actually committing to learning and actually becoming a part of the process, figuring out what you are doing wrong, figuring out where you can improve, figuring out how you can improve certain areas. Like if you're lacking in something, it's good to have somebody show you what is the right way to do, what's the wrong way to do it. And that is the reason why I make these videos right here, so that people can learn and so that people can get better at painting, and so that they can really turn this into more than a hobby. This is something that they can have confidence in. This is something that they can look forward to doing. And it doesn't matter what skill level you are. It doesn't matter if you're just starting off or if you've been painting for 3 years. There's always something new that you can learn. There's always a new technique that you can learn. There's always a way how you can become faster too, because I've gotten fast and I'm trying to become even faster than how I am right now. Now I'm able to create a painting in about like 1 hour. Before, that was unheard of to me. Before, it would take me a few hours just to create something like this right now. But the fact that I'm able to make it in like around 1 hour or like 50 minutes is just a crazy thing to me. And that is from all of the things that I've learned. So again, I want to invite you to that emailing list in my description, because over there you're not only going to get access to that 7-step guide on how to paint portraits perfectly every single time. Over there is where you're going to get access to my coaching, and this is going to be an early launch. You guys are going to get early access to me, and that's where I'm going to answer any questions that you have. I'm going to guide you, and I'm going to get you to the place that you want to be, and the place where you're going to be able to be confident in the work that you make. Even if you want to get faster at just painting portraits, I'm going to teach you the same method that I do, teach you my habits, and really just be there for you, because you need some support on your journey. You need some sort of rock to fall back on. You need some sort of person to really help you, or even just motivate you in some kind of way, and that is how you're gonna get access to that. So again, I want to thank you all for watching this video, and I'll see you all in the next one.